this spring's series, The Politics of Embodiment. It comes out of a desire to respond to the current political moment we find ourselves in. How do we as anthropologists engage with the divisive politics of the moment? Here we've been thinking of and been discussing amongst ourselves, and I'm sure many of you have as well, the impact of Brexit in the UK, the rise of Trump in the United States, the Fees Must Fall movement in South Africa, and the move towards decolonising the university and its curriculum in several socio-historical contexts. And the beat goes on, as the Whispers would say. We came up with the theme, Embodied Politics, to think through the ways in which ethnography can intervene and offer alternative insights in a global political milieu that seems to be once again amplifying this and essentializing difference, and in the process reinscribing prefigured and oversimplified racial, gendered, sexed, aged, and classed categories. In our seminar series title, we refer to politics to flag both these sorts of macro-political processes we find ourselves embedded within, as well as the everyday struggle to make life within it all. We use embodiment to gesture towards the ways in which representation becomes central to the making and unmaking of socio-historical categories of personhood. It's about the tension between what is seen and performed on the surface and lived and felt underneath. And it's ethnography that has the potential to emphasize the dynamic, resistant, and complex culture-making and culture-responding at play and in movement, rather than the rigid culture, body, place equivalent appealed to in the rise of divisive national politics and their antecedents in colonial regimes of knowledge and power. Now, perhaps more than ever, the political commitment of anthropology to demonstrate the complexity of experiences that shape the social body is required, always seeking to disrupt simplistic categories, telling stories that make visible the politics of embodiment. In doing so, we respond to what Stuart Hall, echoing the speech made by Du Bois in 1901, described as the defining issue of the 21st century, the capacity to live with difference. I'll now hand you over to my colleague, Dr. Gabriel Datitreyan, to introduce our speaker, Lez Henry, today.
Hi, everyone. So glad so many people could make it out on our first seminar of the seminar series. We're really excited about all the folks who are coming out this term to speak with us and engage with us on what we think are really important discussions to be had in this particular moment we're in. So it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Lez Henry and welcome him back to Goldsmiths, where he did his BA with honors in Sociology and Anthropology and his PhD in Sociology. He's currently a senior lecturer in Criminology at the University of West London and has written extensively on the Black British experience, popular cultural epistemologies, and the politics of difference in London. His paper today is titled Speaking Yourself into Being, the Deejay Word Made Flesh. And so as always, we run this where we have about 45 minutes of time for our invited guests to speak with the crowd, thereabouts, a little bit more, a little bit less. And then 30 to 45 minute period where we can do a Q&A, which Dom and I will moderate. And then we'll take the party over to the Rose, where we can continue having a conversation. Yeah? So without further ado, Dr. Lez Henry.
Hello, Victoria. That's my hero there. That's my hero, my heroine, who made me love anthropology. And I stole some of my teaching style. Anyway, greetings everyone. Greetings. Yeah, greetings. This isn't a formal lecture, so if you expected to chalk and talk, you're going to be disappointed. There is a paper that I've just written, I'm presenting at a conference in Jamaica next month, called, well, enough of them are right, I read it, we write and arrange. Most of this is taken from that or from my book, What the DJ Said, A Critique from the Street. When I do these kinds of lectures, I enjoy them because I will give you the same kind of presentation I do in the community, because I do a lot of community stuff. So I try to make it palatable, I hope to make it interesting. If you feel you want to interject, feel free to do so. I will try to go for 45 minutes. I'll try. Yeah. But I want to take you on a journey because I was born in Lewisham, just up the road, myself and my twin brother, quite a while ago. We grew through the hostilities of the 60s and 70s, and I'm going to take you on, or introduce you to aspects of that journey, but we're going to do it obviously through music and rhythm. Okay? Yeah? Yeah? Now, for those of you who've never seen me speak before, you're probably going to be in shock. Yeah? So I suggest, anyone good at swimming in here? Because I'm going to chuck you in at the deep end. Sing, sweep, swim or drown. You're going to go in the deep end. Yeah, because we haven't got a lot of time. So is everybody all right? Yeah. Good. So this is what we're going to do. Or we're going to think about. I'm going to just pull this together. Don't like strangers looking at me. They might put me on YouTube. Oh, there's a mad Rasta in there doing some mad stuff. Terrorist. So we're going to think about speaking yourself into being. And I suppose...
I'm just getting the lights right for our swim there.
Don't worry about that. When you're swimming in the sea, it's dark. Just follow the current, baby. Just follow the current. So we're going to think about the Deejay Word Made Flesh. And for those of you who aren't aware, when we spell DJ, D-E-E-J-A-Y, we're talking about people who speak on a microphone. Who do you think this handsome young man is? That's a wild guess. That was, and to be honest, I could never remember where this session was. I don't know if it was in Boston in 1987 or if it was somewhere in South London in 1985. I have no clue. I've been asking people to identify this dude here, because I have no clue who he is. But we used to do that. Sometimes we would just go to a dance and just take a mic and perform. Someone would snap a picture and someone would give it. So is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Good. Right.
Could have taken John Paul Van. When it comes to the lyrics, original lyrical sound, let's take them selected that. And thank to them, because that song we not study. Say Rasta know we not study. Say Rasta know we not study. Say operate to play the music on the book and let me chat it. Let me give them lyrics and originated. Come in and dance, so not them up and lose the lyrics. And it's my lyrics which are operated. But me say no, me come to separate the gold from the grave. Good, state name. You come in at the dark, nobody miss me aim. You come here after watch and man we come here after rave. You worship iniquity, you are Satan slave. Just think that over your soul shall be saved. Man tell me about remits and we put man in a grave. You remits and me know my father used it to shave. My school the teacher taught me things on how to use a live. You ask them any question about how man live in a cave. You ask them about when black man down in a slave. Them blood turn red, them answer used to steal. Give them an example of the sit up, listen. God, I don't know. What is it? He's upon the nice Marcus B. Dedicate himself to the unity massive, coming up to them well set for ya. A murder! Set up by I used to play the music from the book and let me chat it. Let me give them lyrics I've originated. Look why come in the dance, shut up them up and it's the lyrics. And it's my lyrics, they try to be separated. But listen, don't make us to separate the blood from the brain. So with a goody or a blasted name. You come in at the dance, nobody misbehave. You come here and be watching the man, we come here and be real. You worship iniquity, you are Satan slave. Trust in Jah over your soul shall be saved. Me tell me about rabbit and we put man in a grave. You rabbit and me know my father use it for shame. The school the teachers taught me things and how to use a lamb. Could I ask them any question about when man live in a cave? Me ask them about when black man dug in a slave. Them blush, turn red, them answer used to scare. I'll give you an example of the answer they gave. Them try make it get out the class until you learn to behave. You have me so much time, some refuse to teach me. What is it me in the class and send me in the library? So that's why I decided to learn my history. And the words of these men could enlighten me. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King and Marcus Garvey. For all black people I advise you strongly. So learn about your culture so you know your history. But what you might read might make you angry. So listen to the words of Daddy Leslie. Judge a man by his actions to know your enemy. And not by the color he's skin maybe. Come from last year make you the GLC. So them a fight prejudice one create your harmony. But that is something I would love to see. That we all live as one in this country. But that is my dream but this is reality. Come from your hear my lyrics, I'm sure you'll agree. Prejudice compensate on our sworn enemy. Nobody deal with that mental up. Everybody, cause that's the words of Jah Almighty. The lyrics are so conscious cause that it might guide me.
Right, so that was an unexpurgated performance by me. That was in 1985, that much I do know. Okay? Now why do you think I opened with that? Any ideas? Who really had a clue what was going on? Yeah? Anyone else? I gave you the text. Why do you think I opened with that? Anyone? Any takers? Yes?
Was it to kind of like, just to set the context of what you're about to talk about? Because I guess sometimes you think of those spaces as places of entertainment, but they're actually places where people learn and discuss over music.
Absolutely, yeah. They're discursive arenas. And what we'll see as we go on the journeys, we will see that people on the outside dismissed it. Oh, they're in there chatting rubbish, or they're smoking weed, or whatever. Not saying all that didn't go on, because it did, because the first place I ever performed at was 51 Lucian Way, right across the road there. Right there, it used to be next to the Sociology. That's the first place I ever performed. But one of the reasons why I wanted to start with this is because my doctoral work was about me locating myself within that narrative, okay, as a way to explain what an insider perspective was. So if you're familiar with feminism, you know, epistemological privilege, yes, you heard of that? And don't be afraid if you haven't, I'll explain it to you. All it basically says is your knowledge comes from your standpoint, epistemological standpoint, it comes from your standpoint. So if people want to level charges of biasness against you, let's say, your retort is, I don't go for spurious claims of objectivity. This is not an objective position. This is a subjective position. Okay? Everybody cool? You look a bit worried. Don't be worried. Don't be nervous. The other thing is, as you'll see as we go on the journey, what I was actually doing in this particular lyric, it would be the nearest I'd ever get to freestyling. I composed all my lyrics. All my lyrics were written. But this would just be something that I would carry on. And the actual performance was about 5 minutes long. Because what we would do is we would chat, and when the rhythm ran out, they would play the rhythm and you would just go back on the rhythm again. So you wouldn't stop. And we learned that from a Jamaican DJ called Embodiment. He was the first one I ever heard do that. If the records jumped, he would carry on. You could be shooting up the dance, he would still carry on in Jamaica. Okay? So everybody cool with that. So I want to kind of, it's going to be experiential, but I want to introduce you to something real. Because when we're talking about the politics of embodiment, for me what that means is, how do you turn yourself from the invisible to the visible? What are the processes that you use? Because you're not claiming visibility for yourself, because obviously amongst your peers and contemporaries, say in the context of the dance, you're highly visible and you have a presence. And there's a hierarchy in there as well, which if you read my stuff we can discuss. But it's for the people on the outside who comment on your worth or your structural placement in the society that generally have the loudest voice. Okay? So I want to disrupt that. So this actually came out of my undergraduate dissertation, which I submitted in 1997. So this literature was quite current at the time, but I think it's important because of the moment we're going to be looking at. But according to an anthropologist called Niels Shavashinsky, he said, dancehall music is a subgenre of reggae with minimal connections to Rastafarianism, with little expression given in the song text to either religious, social, or political themes. Well, what the hell was left to talk about? Think about it. What else is there to talk about that doesn't fall under those brackets? So this was one thing that he said. Remember, this is 1994. The performance I played you was from 1985. Okay. And this is from Prof. Carolyn Cooper, who I will be delivering a paper for next month. You know, sometimes she gets a bit vexed when you critique her, but hell, it's the name of the game. But in her book, Noises in the Blood, 1996, she was writing about Jamaican vernacular and oral cultures, and she wasn't going to mention DJing at all. She wasn't going to mention it. And then she did a chapter called Slackness, Hiding from Culture in the Dance Hall. Because what they basically said was, they had this crude dichotomy that was, culture was righteous, Rasta, church, uplifting. Slackness was anything that went on in the dance hall. That was their crude dichotomy at the time. So for her, when she did write about DJs, she said the lyrics of the DJs define the furthest extreme of the scribal oral literary continuum in Jamaica. What does that mean? Anyway, come on, you lot are clever, you all look clever. What does it mean?
It's rooted in the culture. It's rooted.
It's rooted in the culture. That's generous. Anyone else? Yeah, which means what? Basically, she's saying DJs are illiterate. If you're at the furthest end of the scribal oral continuum, you are practically illiterate. Now, there's a reason why she did that, because the DJ that she gave a lot of kudos to was a guy called Lloyd Lovindeer, who was middle-class Jamaican who decided to DJ, so obviously was educated, so she gave a lot of kudos and credence to his work. But she says, unmediated by a middle-class scribal sensibility, DJ Oracy articulates a distinctly urbanized folk ethos. So she's basically saying that the ordinary folk cannot write, and they don't read. This is how I read it. Okay? Bearing in mind what you just said.
Okay, people, this is Lovers Rock.
See that? Let's have a look, think about this. Because these were the people who were writing about reggae at the time. So, that record I just played you is by a guy called Sugar Minor, Lovers Rock. Anyone ever been to a reggae dance before? Not like now, it's porn. Forget about now. It's just porn. I'm serious. In fact, porn stars can't do what they do in dances in Jamaica. They can't do it, they don't have the imagination. They're not inventing it. But before, this is the kind of dancing what this teacher was talking about. If I wasn't so old, I'd grab one of these young ladies and give you a demonstration. I'm too old for that. But we used to call it lovers rock or lovers dancing or crubbing or rubbing, and you position yourself against the wall and something like this. You've got your scotch eggs, your legs open, and just get busy. Yeah? Not unusual to come away with wallpaper on the back of your jacket. You know, you leave big stains on people's walls or whatever. But it was misinterpreted, misconstrued. So for the teachers, they thought there was something going on there. It's almost like they're masturbating or they're having some kind of sex, because culturally they didn't understand the frames of reference. It's just a dance. And the thing is, I can't speak for now or young people now. Maybe some of the young people in here can speak to that. But I know that when I used to go out, if you dance with a woman, you could dance like that. You didn't expect to go home with her. She didn't expect to go home with you. It's just a dance. Yeah? I'm not saying there weren't exceptions. There are always exceptions. But the general rule was, it's a dance. That's it. No matter how fruity or loopy you get, it's a dance. Okay? But people on the outside didn't appreciate that. So here's another one from a guy called Ken Price, Endless Pressure, who was a Jamaican sociologist. So he probably had the most clout of anyone who wrote on Jamaican culture, especially reggae music. He said almost all the reggae singers in Britain and in Jamaica have either been delinquents or ex-hustlers or have come from particularly impoverished backgrounds. This is mainly how reggae, already mixed up with crime and rebellion. Now, how can crime be associated with rebellion? Think about it. Are they the same thing? Because to me they are not the same thing. But already mixed up with crime and rebellion before it came to Britain, was incorporated into the lifestyle of the expressive, disreputable orientation. And then he went on to call black youths like myself teen boppers and all kinds of mad stuff that never had anything to do with us. Yeah. But this is what he did. So he's basically saying anyone who's associated with reggae is a criminal or a rebel. The rebel I will accept. The criminal, I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? Here's another one. This is one of my favourites from Cashmore and China. We choose to see insecurely rooted black youths, prematurely matured and sprouting in a cultural marshland of well-dogged tabloids and inner city areas, educated on words which they find irrelevant. Remember, they're talking about people like me, who was born in the UK. So we're talking about it. Yeah? And do not know how to spell anyway. Occasionally they are stimulated by images and strike up postures, often as sudden violence. This was black youth. This is how we were seen at that time. Okay? So, one of the reasons why this made sense to me, although for me it's just pure foolishness, why it made sense is because it's people looking on the outside, not understanding why is it that black children born in the UK refuse to speak English. We used to do that at school. We had our version of patois, or Jamaican language, or whatever you want to call it, and we would refuse to speak to the teachers in English in our language. So when people came in from the outside, they would hear us and they would think, oh, they're just illiterate, they don't understand it, they can't read, they can't write. Not understanding that it was resistant. That's what it was. Because you acknowledged that, like in the lyric that I presented at the beginning, when I said, at school the teachers taught me things like how to use a lathe, could ask them any question about when man lives in a cave. If I asked them about when black people were enslaved, they blushed, turned red, their answers used to scathe. I'll give you an example of the answer they gave. Bloody troublemaker, get out of the class until you learn to behave. That was my experience at school. One of the beautiful things about life is my teachers, to punish me, used to boot me out of the class and send me to the library. I love reading. I was in hog heaven. I used to make more trouble just to get sent out of school because they thought the worst place to put a black boy was in the library. I had a voracious appetite for literature. So I used to love going into the library, although the librarian, and I've written about this before, used to call us monkeys, jungle bunnies, and savages. Yeah, the school librarian. I've written about this stuff before. Okay? But the whole point is, you have a dominant narrative that is being imposed on people based on alien values and an alien worldview. So we need to think about why is we as black African people, I'm talking about people of African ancestry like myself, we're not positively portrayed in their picture, as we would say in Jamaica, feed them story. That's their story. And as such, we're in essence written out of reality. If you want to really understand what was happening around that time culturally, especially for the black presence, don't read the stuff that's written now. Read the old stuff that was written at the time. Then you will have the historical context. I've been charged with being anachronistic. I don't even take that as an insult. I think it's a compliment. Because I'm more interested in getting the old stuff. I want to read the old, politically incorrect stuff. Not the sanitized version, whatever it is, the 8th edition of the book, where they sanitize it. I'm not interested in that. I want the real deal stuff. Go and look at Alf Garnett, you young ones. Go on the internet and look at Alf Garnett, and you'll see what life was like for black people in the 60s and 70s. Look at Alf Garnett. Now, he's kind of mild compared to what's happening in the streets. So what is this? What is it? Hurry up, we ain't got all day. What is it? The British flag. Someone said Union Jack. Yeah? Union Jack. Because that's what we knew it as. Now they can call it whatever the hell they want. Union Jack. You know in America what a jack move is? What's a jack move? Any hip-hop heads in here? Jack move is when you jack someone, you rob them, you take what they've got. That's a perfect description. Union Jack. Well, that's what they did. They went around the world and just jacked people up. Sun don't set on the British Empire. What do you think people just said? Oh, here you go, boy, just take this. Take everything. You know, it's okay. They jacked everyone. But it's central to me and my experience. Why? Because I was born here. What about this? Jamaica flag. Yeah? Scottish flag in different colours. You know that? Yeah, most people don't think. A lot of Jamaicans get upset when I say, it's a Scottish flag. Yeah, it's different colour. It's a Scottish flag. It's different colours. Let's put a bit of blue and white in there. What in Scotland? What about this? Why do you think this is here? What's that? What is it? Microphone. What's this? What have they got to do? What have they got in common? In fact, what the hell are they doing up there? Why do you think I've put them up there? So we've got representation of the UK, Britain, Jamaica, a microphone, and barbed wire. These 4 images sum up my experiences as a DJ. Those 4 images. Yeah? I told you it was a bit crazy, didn't I? This is the cover of my book, What the DJs Do. You notice the symbolism? Yeah? So we've got our lovely Union Jack, but in the Jamaican colours. We've got a microphone with, what's that? Barbed wire. Why do you think barbed wire is on the mic cable?
Barbed wire takes them, keeps them apart, microphone brings them together. You're plugging what keeping things apart into the microphone and bringing them together.
That's a good one. I never thought of that. That is going to be stolen. But that's beautiful. You see, this is the beautiful thing about interpretation, which is why when my students say to me, oh, Les, it's wrong, and you cannot be wrong. It's an interpretation. You argue it. And that's a beautiful interpretation. For me, why I put them together was, I don't consider myself to be British. Only politically. But I am South London. In fact, South East London. Seriously. If I could have South East London in my passport, I would have it. Because I see myself as South East London. I do not see myself as British. As far as I'm concerned, I don't really belong to Britain. Too many fuck-off-home black bastards throughout my whole life made me realise this isn't home. Okay? But when I go to Jamaica, they call me English. Although culturally, I understand Jamaican culture. Most people when I go to Jamaica do not believe I wasn't born there. Because my acculturation was from my siblings who came from there and my parents who were Jamaican. Okay? Microphone is the tool we use as DJs. It projects and amplifies the voice. The barbed wire is because, yes, the microphone can be used to unify, and you can tell can also give them some grisly comments as well. So that's why I use those symbols. Put them all together, but have you noticed what this is? What is that? Circle. That is a 45-inch single. That is responsible for sound system culture, hip-hop, all this stuff that you're into nowadays, the grime and the slime and whatever, the crime, I don't know what the hell it is. But this is responsible for that. That simple object there, 45-inch single. And I had to give props to John Merger, who died recently, and Les has got a nice interview in his book, The Academic Diary. But music and rhythm change the significance of a picture. Okay? Because when you see the picture, it's a still image. If I showed you the words of my performance, you probably wouldn't know what to make out of it. You probably couldn't imagine it, if you're honest, could you? All that noise box, people shouting, going crazy, in a room that probably had a capacity of maybe 100 people, and there were like 300 people in there, all crammed up. That's the environment, that's the atmosphere, and I want you to kind of experience it. Look at this. Now, those are my little grandsons. This was over a year ago. They were around 20 months, yeah? Just walking half decently. Now, what we used to do was we would turn the stereo on to frighten them, yeah? Because they would go and play around with the stereo. So I would use the remote, turn it up really loud, and then when they got there, I would click it and they'd run. I do the same thing with the TV, yeah? But they sussed out how to turn it on. And one day I saw them turn it on, so I just filmed them, not knowing what they were going to do, and they started dancing. And I remember I said to myself, how can we explain that? Because no one ever taught them to move to the rhythm. You see them moving to the rhythm, they were in time. One of them was even clapping. Yeah. How can we explain it? Well, those of you know, it's my brother, you know, Lez Henry. I don't know if you've ever read or listened to any of Bruce Lee's philosophical accounts or expressions. You should. The dude was a genius. This is one of the things he said. It's difficult to have a rehearsed routine to fit in with broken rhythm. You see, rehearsed routine lack the flexibility to adapt. And for me, that sums up what we used to do in those spaces, where the people who were only interested, not even interested, the people who could only see things in a linear fashion, let's say, as a rehearsed routine, would never understand what was going on within those spaces. Because they were spontaneous, as well as adaptive. Our cultures were itinerant, as in that if we were having a dance in 51 Lewisham Way and the police came and raided it, you could bet we would find another empty house to have a dance in. And somehow, we're talking 70s and 80s, people would know and turn up. Because there was this fluidity there. And it wasn't rehearsed. We adapted, and we adapted to our environments. So,
the triplet bass line, which you hear the first lot, the which is a sort of a classic reggae kind of bass line. There's that same triplet bass line running through early house records. If you listen to drum and bass, again, it's essentially a reggae groove, which has had the drumming part of it put in double time.
What's been the kind of biggest influence that multiculturalism has had on the sound of
I think
British music?
probably the biggest single influence can be traced back to the immigration into the country in the 50s and 60s of people from the Caribbean. The music they brought with them, reggae, or the derivation of reggae, which I suppose you could say is the single most important influence on British music.
For me, it was music from a different planet. I'd never heard it. Not in North Derbyshire.
City life isn't about buildings, it's about life played out on the streets. West Indian immigrants changed partying, even how we play music. Sociologist Lez Henry explains.
what we would do is find my dad's old gram, like the old grounded gram, because that's the most bass-heavy thing you could get in the 60s. They take the speakers out, put them in the back of the car. Then all of a sudden, people cottoned onto that, and then we have these 200, 300, 400 watt in-car sound systems. These stereo systems are not produced to listen to classic FM.
No.
That's not what they're producing. Of course you are. Now that's from a program called Whitey Blighty that was, I think it was aired in 2002. But the reason why I play that is because those two guys, the guys you saw at the beginning, the two white guys, the producers, they work for groups like the Sugar Babes. I don't know if you are old enough to remember them. Yeah, I don't know what they did. I just know they made a lot of money. Yeah. But basically they were interviewed by this guy, and he asked them, what is the single most important influence? So he's rooted it back to the people from the Caribbean, so that would be my parental generation. So. However, why is it that whenever they have these award ceremonies, who is always invisible? Think about it. You have the Brit Awards, and it's always, oh, there's no black faces in there. There are loads of black faces, but they're just obscure. They're probably the musicians playing the music, doing the mixing, doing the other stuff. So we have a problem, and again, it's this problem of visibility. So for me, if you are aware of that, then how do you not only think yourself into being, but how do you speak yourself into being? How do you present a voice that is palatable, based on your own terms, that perhaps people will appreciate? Hold on a second, there's something else going on with this group over there. So when I did my thesis with young Les over there, my brother from another mother, one of the things we struggled with was how would we actually present the thesis, because it was based on sound system culture, DJ lyricism, and we were looking at wordplay and oral cultures and creolized language and all that. And we came up with, we'll do it as a record. So my doctoral thesis was totally unorthodox. I didn't even have an orthodox methodology chapter. No, I had a methodology. I didn't have an orthodox literature review. It was split in two halves, the A side and the B side. And I said on the A side, we're going to see what the academics and the commentators and the journalists and all those people have said about the black youth presence in the UK. What have they said? Then we flipped it, and on the B side, we featured what we said around the same moment. So one is in the wider public arena, one is in the alternative public arena. Both valid voices, and I put them together. So for the book that I produced from my thesis, I called the first one Overstanding Black Cultural Expression. And black, B-L-A-K, we started spelling black like that in the UK in the late 80s because we wanted to separate ourselves from other people's struggles. We were saying we are black, we are of African ancestry, our struggles are kind of different. Okay, so that's a political statement. I created something called Black Friday, Black Liberation, African Knowledge, nothing to do with sales. Years ago, I used to run that. On the B side, I called it Drama Unplastic, the critique from the street. So what did we say on the street about what these people were saying about us, and more importantly, how did we present transcendental tales, not just tales to resist, but how do you transcend your oppression? So this is Marcus Garvey. The pen is mightier than the sword, but the tongue is mightier than them both put together. Marcus Garvey. For those of you who haven't heard of him, shame on you. Anyway, sound system and sound system culture were everything for us in the early 80s. Football or sound system. The DJing aspect of the sound system enhanced our lives. My school books were covered in pictures of diagrams of preamps and speaker boxes. I had the names of the more prominent and well-known artists scrawled all over my school books. And it wasn't just black kids like me. White kids and some Asians gravitated towards it as well. The DJ spoke to and documented our condition. We all sailed in the same boat during Thatcher's Britain at that time. We were poor, voiceless, and occupied fringe status in British society. This is, he calls himself as a DJ Bigger Monroe, but his name is Dr. Kenny Monrose, and I think he's teaching at the University of Essex. And we're always reasoning about music, or we're actually in the studio voicing some tunes. But we were reasoning about it, and he said something, and I said, I want to use that, so I kind of just because I think it just speaks to our condition, especially at that time. So this is not a place for individual heroes or hierarchies. Instead, we are deeply immersed into the sonic space of bass and beats, the vibe of reggae and dub. Such an ephemeral event, fueled by post-colonial social marginalisation, is intensely powerful in producing a sense of togetherness. So our whole notion of alterity is what pulled us together. Our sense of otherness pulled us together, because we recognise that those who were othering us were over there. They didn't live our experience, they didn't understand our experience. You know, for many of us, like myself, we had problems convincing our parents that the police would harass us, slap us up, all that kind of stuff. That's the police. Forget about the racists or the dockers who used to come from down the road there at Millwall. They used to attack us on the way home. Out of all of that and those experiences, we created a sense of togetherness where we determined what was of value. We determined what would be acceptable, hence what would be unacceptable. So we had youth DJs like Smiley Culture, Papa Lever, Asher Senator, and many more exhibit well, in my view, the real meaning of black youth in Britain, who are ambitious, creative, and willing to achieve. These black youths have extended cultural strongholds that are normally well fortified. That's when the British DJ presence took off. It influenced reggae music in Jamaica, it influenced reggae music in America, in Canada, all over the place, the British style, which still is kind of invisible in most of the stuff I read now. So you've heard of Mingus, I Play Alright Me. Music is the language of the emotions. If someone has been escaping reality, I don't expect him to read my music. And for me, those are the kind of sentiments we had. We said, we don't expect you to understand it. Half the time we're